Hello and welcome. So given the equations below, find the coordinate point of the vertex. Now remember, vertex is that maximum or minimum of your quadratic. Alright, so vertex is going to be like that minimum or maximum depending on which way that you are facing quadratic wise. Okay, so when you're looking at this, you say, okay, well, how do I find that point? Well, if this was on a graph, right, you'd have your two x-intercepts, and you'll notice that between the two x-intercepts is your vertex. So if that's at 1, that's at 3, then what's the middle of 1 and 3? 2. And that way you can find your vertex. The vertex will always be in the middle of your two x-intercepts, right? Or your two solutions that you find to get to your x-intercepts if your x values are not nice or even imaginary. Okay, so you can always find whatever your solutions for x are, the half of those added together, half of that sum will be the vertex. Alright, so let's do that here. Now we're looking at two quadratics, right? One at the top, one at the bottom. We'll do both of them. Alright. How do we know what the vertex is here? Well, first off, what form is this in? Is this in standard, factored, or vertex form? It's in factored. And you know because we have two different numbers being multiplied in parentheses, right? We have two separate parentheses, distinct parentheses. It's in factored form, right? Which means that from here we can find our x-intercepts so easily, right? All we do is we say, okay, to find an x-intercept, we set y to 0. We have x plus 2, x plus 4, right? And then from there, it literally just set each parenthesis to 0. So then we get x plus 2 equals 0, x plus 4 equals 0. Undo addition with subtraction. So we get x equals negative 2 and x equals negative 4. Alright, so how do you find your vertex? Well, we take our two solutions, negative 2 and negative 4, combine them together. Alright, it's already subtraction, you can just subtract them. Right, divide by 2. Negative 2 minus 4, negative 6. Half of that, negative 3. Which makes sense, because what's between 2 and 4? 3, right? So what's between negative 2 and negative 4? Negative 3. So we have negative 3 comma something for our vertex. Bam. Not too bad. Now how do you find the other coordinate point of the vertex? Well, we know every coordinate point is x comma y. We know x is 3. We know the x is 3. We know x is 3. Plug it in. Plug in x, get out y. That's how coordinate points work. You plug in one, you get out the other. Alright, so let's plug x in. So we have f of negative 3. Now this notation just means that it essentially is saying what's the y value when x is negative 3, right? So don't worry too much. This is literally a fancy way to say y right there. So y equals negative 2 times, plug in x, negative 3 plus 2, parentheses, negative 3 plus 4. And just simplify from there. Negative 3 plus 2, negative 1. Alright, now keep the operations. It's in parentheses, so that should be negative 1. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. What operation is between these? Multiplication. Multiply them. Do not add. You're multiplying these together. So negative 2 times negative 1 is 2. Times 1 is 2. Right? So just simplify it all the way down. You plugged in negative 3. You got back 2. There's your vertex. Okay? Now the only way this process might change is maybe a little bit for this one. If you set, right, each parenthesis to 0, because when you find the x-intercepts, you set our y to 0, so we have 0 equals all that. So then we get x equals negative 2 and positive 3 as your solutions. When you add those together, we end up getting negative 2 plus 3 is 1, so 1/2. And you're like, oh no, it's a fraction. Okay, that's the only thing that might change about this process, is it makes it a little harder to put it in, but it's still not that bad. It's not, right? Because you go through the same idea as now you know what x is, plug in x, get out y. So negative 3 times 1/2 plus 2 times 1/2 minus 3. And then you find out whatever that number is. There's the y-coordinate of your vertex. Done. Right? Now, if fraction arithmetic isn't your strong suit, plug it into a calculator. So we have negative 3 times 5/2, and then that should also be negative 5/2. Okay. So keep going from there. Now we just multiply all of your parentheses together. So when you multiply fractions, top with top, right? So we get negative 25, bottom with bottom, so over 4 times negative 3. Okay. That negative 3 is technically over 1, so it'll multiply with the 25. Negative times a negative, positive. Over 4 won't change. That doesn't simplify, which means 75/4. Final answer. Okay, it's not too bad. Not too bad. Find your x values, add them, divide by 2. There's no other shortcut, there's nothing else to do, but it's already factored, so it's a lot easier to find those x values. Alright, thanks for watching.